Lockhart put his arm around his shoulders and held him close. Then, with a gesture of his hand, he asked the crowd to be quiet and said in a loud voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a unique and exceptional moment. Now is the perfect opportunity for me to share something with everyone. Today, when dear Harry entered the bookstore, he just wanted to buy my autobiography, and I am so happy that I can give it to him myself." The cheers of the crowd rose again. Lockhart shook Harry, causing his glasses to slide down the tip of his nose, and continued. Little did he know that he would be getting much more than just a book of magical mysteries. Harry Potter and his schoolmates would be getting their hands on the real magical mysteries. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to inform you that from September this year I will be the defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The crowd applauded him enthusiastically. Harry received a complete set of Lockhart's works and, staggering under the weight of the books, he moved away from the crowd and went to a corner of the bookstore where Ginny was standing next to her cauldron. Harry placed the books in the cauldron and whispered to her, "This is yours, I'll buy it for myself." Then he heard a voice and immediately recognized it. He said, "Potter, I bet you really enjoyed this, didn't you?" Harry stood up straight and faced Malfoy, who had his usual grin on his face. Malfoy said, "If the famous Harry Potter even sets foot in a bookstore, his picture will be on the front page of the newspaper." Ginny said, "Leave him alone, he didn't go forward on his own." It was the first time Ginny had spoken in Harry's presence, and he glared at Malfoy angrily. Malfoy said in his strained voice, "Potter, you got a girlfriend?" Ginny's face flushed, and at that moment Ron and Hermione, carrying a handful of Lockhart's books, pushed their way through the crowd and came forward. Ron looked at Malfoy and said, as if he were looking at the dirt stuck to the soles of his shoes, You must have been very surprised to see Harry here." Malfoy said sharply, "I was even more surprised to see you in a store, Weasley. With all this shopping, your mom and dad must be starving to death." Ron blushed, as did Ginny. He threw his books into the cauldron and charged at Malfoy, but Harry and Hermione grabbed the back of his jacket. Mr. Weasley, accompanied by Fred and George, forced his way through the crowd and said, "Ron, what are you doing? This is no place for this. Let's go outside." To Arthur Weasley. It was Mr. Malfoy's voice. He had his hand on Draco's shoulder and was grinning just like him. Mr. Weasley nodded coldly at him. Gavin said, "Hello, Lucius." Mr. Malfoy said, "I heard you're very busy at the Ministry of Education, with all those inspections. I hope they at least give you overtime." He went to the genie pot and pulled out an old book from among Lockhart's top-bound books titled The Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration and said, "Of course they don't give you overtime when you're not even paid properly. They don't even tell you why you defame witches with your actions?" Mr. Weasley, who was even redder than Ron and Ginny, said, "Malfoy, your and my opinion on the infamy of wizards is very different." "Does?" Mr. Malfoy looked at Mr. and Mrs. Granger with lifeless eyes, who were staring at him in astonishment, and said, "Of course, it's different with these friends you have, your family must be so low-level." Ginny's cauldron flew into the air and there was a loud thud. Mr. Weasley had attacked Mr. Malfoy and thrown him backwards onto a bookshelf. Dozens of thick spell books fell on everyone's heads. Fred and George were shouting, "Damn it," Mrs. Weasley was screaming, and neither Arthur nor the crowd backed away in terror, and other shelves were thrown over. The salesman was shouting, "Gentlemen, please. Please," and then a voice above all was heard saying, "Stop it. Hey, gentlemen, stop it." Hagrid came towards them through a sea of books and in the blink of an eye separated Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy. Mr. Weasley's lip was split and the Encyclopedia of Poisonous Mushrooms had been thrust firmly into Mr. Malfoy's eye. He still had Ginny's old Transfiguration book in his hand, and a diabolical lightning flashed across his face. There was a sparkle in his eyes. He threw the book at Ginny and said, "Come on, girl, take your book, your dad couldn't buy you a better book than this." Then he pulled himself out of Harry's grasp, beckoned Draco, and left the shop. Harry was straightening Mr. Weasley's clothes, almost. He had lifted her from the ground and said, "You shouldn't have taken him in. Arthur is so dirty. Their whole family is from the bottom. They're bastards and scum. Everyone knows this. When you put your foot in the door with the Malfoys, they're not worth the trouble, their lineage is ruined, that's their fault. Well, let's go out now." The shopkeeper seemed to want to stop them, but since he was not even close to their waists, he gave up. They hurried up the street. Mr. and Mrs. Granger were trembling with fear, and Mrs. Weasley, looking angry and agitated, said, "You really are a good role model for your kids. You beat up in front of all those people. What does Gilderoy Lockhart think now?" Fred said. "He was so happy. Didn't you hear what he said? When we were coming out of the bookstore, he asked the guy who worked for today's newspaper if he could write about the beating in his report. He said it was his own propaganda." By the time they reached the leaky cauldron, everyone had calmed down. Harry and the Weasley family, with all their luggage and bundles, had to use the flying powder to get from the leaky cauldron stove to the bunker. Mr. and Mrs. Granger had to leave the leaky cauldron through the other door and walk onto Muggle Street. Mr. Weasley had wanted to ask them how the bus stops worked when he said goodbye, but Mrs. Weasley gave him a glare. Harry took off his glasses and put them in his pocket before taking out the flying powder. He had not liked traveling with flying powder at all. And that brings us to the end of today's Harry Potter story. I hope you enjoyed the journey and felt the magic all over again. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more magical adventures. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the magic alive.